Hello, my name is Dmitry, Community Content Lead at the Cardano Foundation, and welcome to SPO Table Talk number 2. Today, we'll be diving into the newly designed reward calculator and exploring its relevance to the Cardano ecosystem. Whether you're an SPO, delegator, ADA holder, or involved in governance, understanding how parameter changes impact rewards, treasury growth, etc. is essential. This discussion will help us break down the effects, implications, and the potential benefits and risks of these changes. With me today to explore this topic is Dmitry, Markus, and Johnny Kelly. Let's allow them to briefly introduce themselves. Johnny.
Oh, sorry. You said Dmitry first, so I thought, hello, I'm Johnny Kelly. I'm in the governance parameters working group and was very briefly the head of the governance parameters in the parameters committee, but then that went to Nicholas after me. However, I have been in some meetings. So yeah, I'm just going to be here to talk about the sort of constitution, changing of parameters, things like that, what rules exist, and the others are going to talk about the new calculator and the technicals.
Thank you, Johnny. Markus?
Yeah, my name is Markus Gufler. I work at the Cardano Foundation in the community team, and this community engagement now with the hot topic governance is something where we talked we may relaunch this calculator and bring it to usability or to visibility for all the community. So here we are, and I'm very happy to present today what we have on new.
Thank you, Markus. Dmitry.
Hi, everybody. My name is Dmitry. I'm a developer behind the calculator. Together with Markus, we've been working for the past few months, and I run a company called Dynamic Strategies out of Portugal. So I'm really happy to be here to explain how this works.
Thank you. Thank you. Now, before we deep dive into the reward calculator itself, can someone give us a broad understanding of what this newly designed reward calculator is, the idea and philosophy behind it, and what you hope to achieve with it? I guess that's going to be you, Markus.
Yeah, I can say something about. So let me quickly switch here to the next slide. We already have a staking calculator. It existed since 2020 when Shelley Mainnet launched. And back then it was brand new. So what else it could do than be based on theoretical assumptions? So this staking reward calculator is still there, but it is based on what was available 5 years ago. So we thought it was a good idea to bring this now to a relaunch and then a better, a new version that is also showing the history or the current progress of the mainnet. So as you see here, don't look at the exact numbers, just on the 3 lines. If we will follow just the pure theoretical lines and just consider some simple parameter values, then it will look like the red value. So the consumption of the reserves over time. The more parameters we count in from this very complex rewarding scheme, the more detailed it becomes. But actually, the progress of the network is also depending on user behavior, transaction fees, staking participation, and so on. So you see here that there is a clear difference already from a theoretical to the practical progress. And this theoretical or this practical progress now is considered in this new reward calculator. Here I will give some quick overview of what the design goals was when we started this project here with Dmitry. So when I reached out to Dmitry, then I told him, look, the main goals or what we want to achieve is it really needs to start in an easy, welcoming way. So when users first look at this, then they should be really able to look at this, just enter a value and get a very quick result without too much details that may are confusing them. The second goal is that even if it's calculating values, it should also be educational. So there should be some surrounding explaining texts, and we want to have always referring links to some additional content, so existing websites on the developer portal, on the specs, white papers, research papers, and so on. A third goal is, of course, what I already mentioned, the rising awareness of governance, and of course also our very much unique or very cool liquid staking model we have in Cardano. So the staking calculator now should hopefully also give a good visualization and idea about this. Then what we wanted to do is to really use mainnet live data, and this epoch by epoch. So when you do a calculation now and you come back in a couple of epochs, then you will already see a slightly different values. So it is always up to date. The calculator then should also allow some deep dive. So if we would just stop at the easy entry and the very superficial insight in the beginning, then it would not allow to actually get an understanding about the individual parameters that now become relevant, and we can discuss them and then potentially decide on a change in the governance actions. So the deep dive is then also something that is given or was a goal for this staking reward calculator. I will show then, of course, now very soon what it is. And then a last goal, we want to make it accessible. So it is already made to be translated. Actually, this week here, I'm in Tokyo. I do a whole series of meetups in Osaka, Fukuoka, now Tokyo. And we already have this translated in Japanese. So the people here who attended the meetups already got an early preview or an early access to this this week. And hopefully we can then also translate it to some more other major languages, for example, Spanish. Last thing, the calculator is open source. So it is available, it is fully transparent, and we already have some ideas, but are also very happy to hear about ideas or suggestions, contributions from the ecosystem, from the community. This here is the repository. And now we can switch to the actual calculator view. So this here is the new calculator. It will be released right after this stream here on Cardano.org. And what you see here is in the very beginning, you just put some ADA value, whatever you have. And then you see here how much ADA you will get on rewards per year. And here also some API value. The gray values, I will show you very quickly what it is. We are here on this entry level. So this is the first view you get. And here on the sideline, you always have some quick explanation what this is about here. And then you also have some links to more information. So read more about, this is on the developer portal, on Cardano.org, on different websites. So now this reward here is based on a average stake pool that we have on our mainnet, but the staking calculator now allows you also to select a stake pool. Let me quickly just scroll through here. I just select the first one. So it is loading values, hopefully. Let's see where it is. Let's check another one. It is not loading. Can you see it? Maybe it was too long. Let me reload the website because it was too long already.
It worked for me if you click outside of the box straight after selecting one, just to the bottom left of the box.
Yeah, maybe it was because I had prepared it too long already. So now it's working. Okay, just it was too long loaded already. So what we can do here is you can select a pool, and then by selecting this pool, you already see here a different value. Then you can select another one, and again it should load. Takes some time. It will show you here what it is. And yeah, if you switch here forward and back, then it will show you here the different values you have. We will look into these different stake pools later. I will now focus on giving you a quick overview. These stake pool values, you can look at it then also here. And in the next level, you can then also change these values. So this is where the stake pool parameters can be changed. Imagine you are a stake pool operator. Now here you could decide to change some values and then again see how this will change. We will do this later. Let me just quickly go through. And the deepest layer is then really where it is about governance, because here we have some values that are valid for all the stake pools and all the ADA holders, all the participants in the network. So here again, it is about this. We also have here static parameters, and then also the option to simulate or change the fees that we earn per epoch. That was basically the initial intro here, and I'm happy now, Dionisio, if you have more questions, please let us know.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you so much there, Markus. This was very insightful. It's what I like, because you mentioned earlier, right, that this is based on live data. Am I correct?
Yep. Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
So there is definitely one question that I like. So before the tool existed, how did stake pool operators and delegators estimated their rewards? And what is the biggest change compared to what was done previously and now?
Well, as I mentioned before, the previous stake pool operator did not consider any live values. So there was no stake pool you can select. You could insert some values like what the min fee is and so on. But the thing is, it was always assuming that it is in the state of the network and the reserves at the beginning of the Shelley launch, so in August 2020. And now this here is basically based on live data. So if there is a new pool next epoch and you come back here next epoch, then you will see it already. And by selecting it, you will get the values that this pool has set. And then, yeah, that's the ground or the fundamental thing you need, because based on these values, the calculator then can calculate what rewards will be what rewards it will generate for you epoch by epoch and then per year.
Exactly. Okay.
But here maybe it's a good idea to hand over to Dmitry. He can tell a lot more about what's under the hood here.
Absolutely. Dmitry, handing it over to you.
Thanks, Markus. Thanks, Denise. Yeah, happy to walk through it. So I think it's important to mention this is completely open source. It's on the Cardano Foundation GitHub that anybody can go and access and look through the code to understand how exactly it's working. It's connected to the blockchain directly. I think we use Koios in the background. So whenever you access the calculator, it connects to the blockchain and refreshes all the parameters. Maybe, Markus, if you can just refresh the calculator just to see how quickly it loads.
Yep.
Yeah, so it's connecting to the blockchain, loading stake pools, and that's essentially did it in a couple of seconds. Now, I think one of the things with the calculator is that it uses a Monte Carlo approach to calculate the results. I think this is quite important improvement versus the previous one. So on the Cardano blockchain, stake pools earn rewards when they mint blocks. If they don't mint blocks in an epoch, they don't generate any rewards for themselves or for the delegators. And there are 5 days in an epoch, about 21,000 blocks in an epoch, and there's a bit of a random chance for a pool to generate a block to be assigned to generate one of those 21,000 blocks. And the probability of being assigned a block is proportional to the amount of delegated stake to the pool. So you'd expect large pools to generate a lot of blocks, small pools to generate less blocks. But fundamentally, there's a chance that a pool gets to generate a block. And Monte Carlo is just an algorithm that simulates many random numbers and checks whether a pool has generated a block and how many blocks in each of the epochs. And then based on that, calculates how much rewards the pool gets from those blocks and how much it can send to its delegators. So in the background, we are running a lot of number generations and essentially rolling forward over a year how many blocks a pool could generate and how much rewards that would give. And we do it many times. So we run 10,000 Monte Carlo simulations per pool, and it's all happening in the background. And that gives us a very reliable estimate of the reward for the pools. It's very difficult to have a closed form solution for the rewards because of this random nature of blocks. So that's why we went to this Monte Carlo approach. So Markus has the calculator open. I see you already loaded a few pools. If you just, so he's going through individual pools. If you just scroll down a little bit, okay. And you have 3 pools to select from. So 3 pools that you can show at once. And there's a list to select from all the pools for each one. It gives you standard information for each of the pools that are comparable. So for example, Kudos, Treffy, and another one. I think Markus is having some internet connection from where he is. But basically, it tells us that Treffy, let's just focus on that one. Okay, so it loaded. So CCP, let's focus on that one. So it basically says that it has minted 282 blocks to date. It's been active for 4 years. It has that many delegators. It has a 0 margin, so it doesn't charge a variable fee, and it charges a minimum fee of 170. And the expected return for that pool over a year is a range between sort of the lower 10th percentile, 1.65% yield, and the upper 10th percentile, 2.28. This highlights the need for the Monte Carlo, because blocks are randomly assigned to individual stake pools, and just pure to luck, a stake pool can be assigned more or less blocks. That's why we give the lower bound, sort of, with a 10% confidence interval, what is the lowest you'd get, and then the upper bound, 10% confidence level, how much maximum you'd get, and then the average in between. If you don't do a Monte Carlo simulation, you won't be able to see this range of results. Okay, so that's the Monte Carlo. Now we can go into individual parameters next. So, for example, we know that fees are very important for generating rewards. So the more fees the blockchain generates, the higher the rewards the delegators will be. But it just fees get distributed to the delegators. So if we go, for example, all the way to the bottom, Markus,
Yep.
Even further, we see that we have a breakdown of how much of the rewards are coming from fees, from the distribution of reserves, and then the net amount that gets distributed to pools. So we can, for example, increase the fees by 10 times. We just add a 0 to the end. Okay, so we 10x the fees, and that shows how much for that particular pool the stake and reward will have increased. So not by a lot. If you go further down again, Markus, and we just increase that 100x. Further to the bottom, where the fees are at the bottom of the screen.
I did.
Oh, okay, sorry.
He added an extra 0 to bring it up to 100 from the original.
Yeah. So that's increased the rewards slightly. So that sort of highlights how fees affect the rewards that get distributed. We can then look at the optimal number of pools parameter, for example.
Yeah.
So exactly. So that's one of the parameters that controls how fast pools get saturated. If you change the parameter, then pools that are beyond a certain level of delegated stake will get capped on the amount of rewards that they distribute. So, for example, if you change this to 1,000.
This is very relevant because Markus, I remember we did the SPO poll. That was like 2 years ago, and there was a lot of commotion. A lot of people, even till today, still are requesting, let's say, to change the K to 1,000. So here you have it, basically, seeing what effects that would have.
I'll just interject and say it doesn't have an effect if you're below saturation, and after K goes up to 1,000, you're still below saturation. It doesn't have the effect of doubling your rewards. You can see it's still 2.84. And remember, this 2.84 comes from having 100x the fees. So the negative effect would only be if you were already over saturation and K went to 1,000. That would half your saturation, which would then give you a penalty on your rewards. So changing K by itself doesn't increase rewards. It changes the potential distribution of stake, which could then have the knock-on effect of increasing your rewards if you're a smaller delegated pool.
Exactly.
Thanks for
clarifying. So in this case, it doesn't really affect the rewards when you increase the optimal number of pools. But if you just go ahead and check for this particular pool what the total delegated stake is, if you just scroll a little bit down, okay, it's only 1 million. So let's try and force this to be a saturated pool. So if you go all the way to the top, and you increase the amount available to stake to, I don't know, 100 million.
Something broke. No, it didn't. It's fine. 1.3%. It went down.
Yes, exactly. So the total stake pool size increased to 100 million. That's beyond the saturation point. So importantly, your total amount of ADA rewards increased, but the percentage yield has actually reduced. So you've hit a cap beyond which you're not generating any more rewards. And if you continue increasing it, it will continue to drop. So yeah, exactly. So this sort of shows the connection between stake pool size and the saturation point.
Yeah. There's Dmitry. There is a question in the chat, and by the way, everyone who's tuning in, thank you so much. If you're on X, if you're on YouTube, please feel free to ask any question that you have here about the rewards calculator, or if you'd like to see a certain parameter change, interact with the panelists. These are the ones who knows and are about this and are able to not only demonstrate it but also answer any question that you may have. Now, this particular individual here, and thank you also for posting the question, made sure. He'd like to see a comparison including ANP pool.
Trial by fire?
Yeah, I mean, I would suggest maybe to refresh the calculator just to get it back to the original parameters.
Yeah, because we're getting 100 times freeze and a K and 1,000. So let's bring it back to real. F5.
And if you're on X, joining us on X, if you'd like to retweet this roundtable, this SPO table talk, that would be awesome. The more people that sees this interact with the panelists, the better it is also for better overall understanding of the ecosystem. Go ahead, Dmitry.
Okay, we're back. Yeah, so if you in the stake pools, you can pull up the stake pool that was asked in the chat. Yeah, so there, just for context, you can search by ticker or by pool ID. So there might be some pools that don't have a ticker, so you can put in a pool ID and that will find it. Okay, so that was the first one, ANP.
Yep, the second one should be what it was.
I think it was just that. No, yeah,
we can have a. They just wanted to test themselves live, see how
okay. So yeah, so the ANP pool, you can scroll a bit further down and look into the stake pool parameters. So it seems like this was quite a saturated pool. It has minted a lot of blocks already. Yeah, 39 million total stake. And yeah, so we can change some of the pool parameters just to see what it does. So for example, if you change the variable fee, let's say move it up to 10%, what would that do? If you scroll up, yeah, so that reduces the total reward, as you'd expect. So the variable fee means that a portion of the rewards goes to the stake pool operator rather than to the delegators. Yeah.
Markus, could we add several other pools to the comparative mix?
Do you have any preferences?
I think someone here suggested K blocks. I'm not sure if that's an actual pool anymore. No. Then I guess we can go with any random pool out there. Yeah. Oh, Tempest. TM. What's the ticker of Fabian? Tempest.
I can tell you the ticker of K blocks is just block.
TMS. Yeah.
No, it was the word block. Maybe they've retired. BLOCK. I'm not sure.
Nope.
Okay. Thanks, Markus.
Okay. So yeah, so that's a comparison between the three pools. It gives you straight away the expected return across the three. Yeah, looking just at the average, TMS seems to produce a better average return for the delegators than ANP. We see that the minimum fee on TMS is smaller. It's about half. It's half of the others. So that's potentially where the reward is coming from. Additional reward is coming from if the total stake is of similar size. So you can go towards the bottom. If you just scroll down a little bit, stakeable parameters, you can see total pool stake. 23. And if you click on the top, if you click on the ANP pool on the left side, that should update.
Live debugging, live demos. Maybe it'll just take a moment. Block is not retired, by the way. It's still alive. It minted a block within the last 6 hours. So I don't know if there's a query issue there.
It looks like I have some connectivity issues here in the hotel room in Tokyo, so it is not always loading. Some requests just fail. Sorry for that, but yeah, usually at your home it should work better.
Yeah. So this essentially has all the parameters that affect the reward calculator, and you can change them dynamically, and will recalculate the values. Some other things that you can potentially look at is how the rewards change as we move forward in time, and more of the ADA reserve gets spent. So in a few years' time, as more reserve gets spent, the reward will reduce. And there could be a case where smaller stake pools generate less rewards for the delegators, because they'll consume more in fixed fees if the fixed fee remains the same. You can also change the monitor expansion, sort of how quickly the reserves get spent, and by increasing the rewards on a short-term basis, but eventually longer term, the reserve will get depleted faster. Yeah.
There's scroll up a bit, you can see the ones that would be votable on chain under governance. So if you scroll up slightly, you'll see the dynamic parameters, and they are monetary expansion, distribution to treasury, so the tax that's currently up for vote, the optimal number of pools K, pledge influence A0, monetary expansion is rho, and distribution to treasury is tau. Yeah, so these are things you can play about with to see their effect without having to change them on chain, and just see how your pools rewards would be affected by such changes. Yeah, so
could we do some simulations here, Johnny?
Yeah, so if we halved the treasury tax from 0.2 to 0.1, which is up for vote at the moment, you would see the effect it would have, and that would be dropping it from 20% to 10%. And then you can look at the grayed out version of what it used to be and what it would become. So the grayed out one to the right is what it was whenever it was 20%, and the darker one is what it would be if it switched to 10%. For tax. So you can do live testing of the effect of a parameter change on rewards of a pool.
Amazing. What other parameters can we could we tweak here, Johnny, and how will that affect? Can you?
Well, we've already played with K, and as we saw, that it only has a negative effect if a pool's already oversaturated. If a pool is under saturation and would remain under saturation after a K increase to 1,000, there wouldn't be any effect on the rewards. But it would have the nudging effect of having potentially people redistribute their delegation to smaller pools or pools that are below the new saturation limit. And then the pledge influence factor is one that's come around a lot for people, and that's quite interesting, because even if you raise that from 0.3 to 0.4, it would mean that the rewards for smaller pledge pools would go significantly down. Because pledge is having more of an effect, and it actually would mean something more than it currently does. So you can see it was 2.92. Now that was with the tax. The previous one was 2.92 with the tax at 10, which we've kept. But if with that change in effect, if we increase the pledge effect, this pool would only go down slightly. But let's say we went down, if we go down to the individual settings in state pool parameters, if we made that something like 5,000 for pool pledge, yeah, that'll do. You can see that effect. Oh, I think it's interacting with the existing state pool selections. You might want to start again to make this a pure test. Sorry. But yeah, the point is you can do live testing of the effects, and pledge, one of the arguments that people have had about pledge is it doesn't have significant negative effect on lower pledge pools to really change reward levels. Instead of selecting one, okay, I was going to just do a fully fictional one, but never mind.
Yeah, thanks for that, Markus. Yeah.
This one here is.
Yes, Tom has said in chat that lowering K would have an effect for highly pledged pools. Yeah, if the pledge was, yeah, okay. So you can play around with these. Yeah, yeah.
This one means that there is something wrong. So there's like a pledge is not fulfilled, or Dmitry can say something more about.
Yeah, so I think this is where the stake, the stated stake is the active stake is below the stated stake, so the pool would not mint blocks.
Be incredibly unlikely to, at the very least, maybe once in a couple of years. If there's delegation of like 20,000 or something.
Yeah.
So
we have
Johnny, I'm ready again. It's 3 new pools, and we are all with default values now. So when you
what I was going to try and do was not have any pool selected in the base it on reality, and instead just use the make it up yourself. So you could do a theoretical pool rather than having to base it off.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry.
And if you're a budding stake pool operator, you could sort of see if it's worth your while to set something up by using this calculator as a means to sort of project what you would expect. So if you go up, well, you need start at 0.3, which is the current setting, right? And then put in, do you want me? I can do it. I think I've already set this up. Anyway, the point is all of these are available for people to play about with themselves. You don't have to select an existing ticker to have the calculations. You can use the second section where you just put in what your theoretical pool would have for pledge, for total stake, for their fixed cost, their variable fee, and you can play around all day to sort of optimize for what you would expect to get in rewards for that pool. And you can work out as a potential stake pool operator whether or not it's worth it. In your eyes, and then you could also test out what the effects of changing different parameters would be on the chain on the feasibility of a pool, and then that would lead into the governance guardrails and things like that, but we can talk about that later.
All right, cool. Thank you there. Thank you so much there. I know, Markus, it's a bit challenging indeed, scrolling through back and forth.
Sorry.
No, that's okay. Just for, let's say, for ease of use, Johnny, would you prefer to share your screen and then walk through that if that makes it a bit more easier for you? Would you prefer that? Oh, you're muted, Johnny.
Yeah, I was just making sure I had the right window selected. So here we go. Hello. So we've got here an example that's nice and simple. We've got a pool with a very low pledge, relatively speaking, of 5,000, and a current delta. Oh, what happened?
Would you be able to increase the screen size,
Johnny? Oh yeah,
briefly?
Here we go. I've got a 1440 panel here, so sorry. Is that better?
Slightly more.
Because of the scaling of the website. All right, so we got a pool pledge here of 5,000. We have a total stake of 1.5 million. Fixed pool costs of a smaller pool are likely to be smaller fees to try and mitigate the effect of having only a single block in an epoch. So that would bring them to an average of 2.01 annualized return. So if you then change the pledge effect, which is one that is of great contention for a lot of people, let's go find it, from 0.3 to 0.4, not 4 on the dot. It's a little bit fiddly, this. There we go. You can see that that would have a negative effect on the returns of a smaller pledge pool, which would make pledge have more influence on the rewards and sort of push people towards having higher pledge pools, which is an argument that's been made a lot. And I think Tom will appreciate being considered here because he was starting with a concern that pledge wasn't being considered at all in this because the dynamic parameters didn't appear first. But they are there and you can play with them and you can see the effect they'd have. Now, if this person had, I'll leave it at the default, right? At the moment, so hang on. There we go. Yeah. So this is the current settings. If they increase their pledge from 5,000 to 50,000, 10 times the pledge, it doesn't really affect their staking rewards. It doesn't increase them. And pledge is supposed to have a positive effect the more pledge you have. And this is another argument that people make, that not having enough pledge effect means that there's not much of a difference between someone with a 5,000 and a 50,000 pledge. And that's something that might change with changing the pledge parameter. So that's just like full disclosure. You can play around with that and see what things like that would have an effect on in terms of rewards, and it would sort of push people to put more pledge in to have a bigger effect. So I'll finish the last aspect of this and put this up to 50,000 again and see if changing that helped. It still didn't, so there would need to be a further increase in pledge effect for it to actually start helping. So yeah, there you go. Tom has made the point that the effective pledge will only be visible when it's 5 million or more. So I think it's highlighting that there might be a not realistic point around pledge effect being changed that much based on this little simulation, because how likely is it that pool operators are going to put up 5 million pledge? Of course, it would reduce how much would need to be put up the higher you have a pledge effect, but it's still going to be quite significant requirement for pledge to start having that effect.
Yeah.
But this is the kind of simulation you can do, is the point.
Absolutely. Johnny, I mean, now that we are in the era of Voltaire, and I'm pretty sure we can expect multiple types of governance actions. We see here, if you scroll down to the dynamic parameters, right, you'll see that there are other parameters there that also is allowed to be adjusted. I mean, it would be good to showcase, like, what the effects of these other parameters would be, because I'm pretty sure that there are people right now considering, let's say, parameter changes. And it's good to give people kind of an idea of how they can play around with it, what effects it may have. If you can just briefly have a look at that, and before we move on to the following segment.
Yeah. So for my theoretical pool of 5,000 pledge, we've already done the pledge effect analysis. This is the row, which is monetary expansion. I'll just expand this out. A percentage of the reserve that goes towards paying staking reward each epoch, currently set to 0.3%. Now, if you increase monetary expansion, or row, you decrease how much time is left for reserves to come out to people. So it would mean that the fee effect would need to come in so much quicker. Based on that increase. But short-term rewards are something that people might care about. So at the moment, with monetary expansion set to 0.3, the average of this fictional pool of 5,000 pledge, 170 min fee, and 1.5 million delegation, if we increase, if we increase the monetary expansion to be this, 0.4% of the reserves come out every time, this would have a massive effect on increasing the annualized staking reward, but at the cost of how much time is left in reserves to go out to pools. So short-term gains might not necessarily be the best thing. And that's one of the arguments that people make against reducing the treasury cut, because while it will have a positive effect, So we can run that simulation as well. So we'll go back to the default for monetary expansion, and we'll move on to tax. Tax is currently 20% of the reserve money that comes out, and we'll make this nice and simple. That's the original base case based on the current settings. And then if we reduce tax to 10%,
I believe there's also a governance action currently.
Yes, currently
still
on chain that people can vote for or against to say whether or not treasury tax should be halved from 20% of the money that comes out of reserves and transaction fees that come onto the chain down to 10% of the money that comes out of reserves. And you can see it has a positive short-term effect of increasing the rewards from 2.01 to 2.34. But that's at the cost of reducing how much money comes into the treasury on an epoch by epoch basis, which some argue would help with reducing spend per year, and some argue would be a negative thing, because if we reduce how much is coming to the treasury, we can reduce how much we can invest back into the ecosystem. So there's multiple viewpoints, but the short-term realistic effect would be a short-term increase on the annualized staking reward. But you got to remember that this figure is always going down because the reserves are always going down. So while you do have a bump, it's more of a kicking the can down the road effect of increasing the rewards on a temporary basis until we get to fee reliance completely. But again, some short-term effects could be considered positive in the eyes of some. And then we'll go back to default. We've already played with K, and we've noted that if K is 1,000 and you already have a small delegation, it has no effect. But let's say this pool was right at the saturation level that was previously set under K5. Now, this is where I get a bit funky because for some reason it's difficult to fill this in specifically, and you have to go just live testing bug issues. But here we go. So if we put it around 60 million, which I'm going to do ever so slowly. So that would be below K500 saturation, but because it's currently, it would now be above the saturation, which would be half it's currently set. It would reduce the rewards significantly for a pool that's already close to saturation. And we'll see the difference if we bring this back to 500 and see what the real effect is right now. So you can see that they'd be dropping. A pool that's nearly at but not at saturation currently would be worth about 2.63% in the year with these settings and a pledge of 5,000. And it would reduce to 1.64 because it would now be above saturation following K's change. So I'm hoping I'm representing all sides of things because I don't want to be biased. But yeah, you can really play out the effect of a parameter change on chain in this calculator, which is really cool. And
this is nice.
Awesome.
This is very insightful as well, because it actually shows really the relevance of this reward staking calculator in governance, especially for the people who are considering even, let's say, submitting a particular parameter change. Now, Johnny, I know that you've also prepared several other stuff. Maybe you'd like to walk us through that. But before we go to that, while you prepare yourself, I do want to thank everyone also in the chat who's been interacting with us. We see here Fabian is there. We see B is there. Nicholas, Turney is there. The Cardano Stake Bull is there. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining in. If you're joining in also on X, and if you'd like to ask any questions, please do so. The experts are here today, and they're able to answer any question that you may have. So take that opportunity. Johnny, back to you again.
Yeah, so we talked about just randomly playing around with these dynamic parameters, but the thing about that is there are some rules that govern how often they can be changed, and this is under Appendix 1 of the Constitution that's now ratified on chain. Now, there's a long document that you can read on cgov.app, which is a nice presentation of that. Or there's a spreadsheet that I've been working on that would actually break it down to be a bit more readable based on the specific parameters around this calculator, which I've filtered out here. But you can get this by going, oh, I've zoomed in too far. You can get this by going to bit.ly/Cardano guardrails. And if you go to that, it's all one word, Cardano guardrails. You can see it actually has all sorts of things, but I'm limiting it at the moment to just the ones that we're looking at right now. So you can see the rules around how often whether or not there's an SPO vote required to change them, which there isn't in the case of all 4 of these, which is interesting. Whether or not the Constitution specifies that there should be a 3-month consultation process before it doesn't on all 4 of these parameters, which again is quite interesting. And then you've got minimum settings. So the 10% for tax, treasury cut, TAO, is the minimum setting in the guardrails. So whenever that proposal was put forward, they put it to the minimum tax that could be charged on chain under the Constitution, which is quite funny. And then you can see that it can only be changed every 36 epochs. And then you can see the different minimum maximum settings on each of these parameters and what the rules around them, things like that. So that's quite a useful little reference guide for if you're going to put forward a proposal. You know what the minimums are, you know what the maximums are, you know what the rules in addition to that, shoulds and musts and things like that. And it's all back referencing the actual source of these rules. So in this case, we got monetary expansion rule ME03Y. If we copy that and fire it into our very long text, we should be able to paste it in and find it. There we go. So you can cross-reference against the actual text of the Constitution using that spreadsheet, which again is at bit.ly/Cardano guardrails. And just know before you put in a proposal what the rules for minimum, maximum, how often, shoulds and musts around that parameter, which is quite a nice resource, if I do say so myself.
Amazing. Thank you so much there, Johnny, for sharing that. Is there anything else? Of course, you also have some other stuff that you want to share.
Well, no, I mean, we're basing all of this off the actual calculation, and it goes into the actual equation, but I'm not going to go into that depth, but I'm just saying it's available. The website address. Oh, well, you can find this. If you search for pledging rewards under Cardano docs, you'll find all of the sort of theory craft behind the parameters and how they actually work together. And it's part of the background of what's going on. Although it looks a bit intimidating, that's what's happening. And that's it.
All right. Thank you so much there, Johnny. Thank you for clarifying that as well. There is a question in the chat that we had earlier from Fabian. He missed it, but would like to know when the calculator would be publicly available. Markus, do you want to take that?
Yep. So we are right in the last steps to release it on the public website. So on cardano.org/calculator, there will currently you see there's a work in progress and please come back later message. And later today we will release it there. So just what we showed here in the stream will be available then to all of you. As you may have seen there, it also has a lot of links to additional informations and background. Here also to mention, this rebar calculator is basically a user interface with some background, and it is very similar to the guardrails, what Johnny just showed. It also is related and aligns or links to the parameter modeling white paper that was released recently. And if you was yesterday in the stream with Fred and Massimo, they talked about. Some colleagues here in the foundation also worked on the reward calculation, so a re-implementation of the world reward calculation. This is the Yassi store. And they also have now since this week, a new updated version with the full covering of also the new governance functionalities and values that needs to be counted into the reward calculation. So all of this plays together. If you want to give a really deep dive, then look into the guardrails, what Johnny just showed, or the white papers. Here, this one, as soon as it's released later today, is then much more, let's say, to play around, do some quick simulations. And we also have already some ideas to extend this reward calculator with more long-term charts and additional functionality. But as for now, we thought it is the right time right now to release it now with the first governance actions flying in. And then later this year, we may extend it to more functionality.
That is a very welcome feature, a very welcome tool as well for the ecosystem. Guys, just conscious of time. If there's no last minute questions from the viewers, who we definitely like to thank you for tuning in today and interacting with the panelists, I'm going to put it now to you, Dimitri, for some final words. We'll move then to Marcus and then to you, Johnny Kelly. So, Dimitri, any last words?
Yeah, so this is really created for the user to be user friendly and to be able to simulate impacts of rewards from changing different parameters. Yeah, it's very quick and easy to use. That's intention, and it's open sourced on GitHub. So please go to the GitHub and open issues, contribute to it. All contributions are very welcome.
Thank you, Marcus.
There was one last question I saw here. The switch to the Japanese is if you add the get parameters question mark lang equals to JP, but it will then be linked in the website anyway, and there will be a language selector. It's still some last things we need to implement. So it's all hot needled and went out, but you will just find it right away. Don't need to do tricky work or secrets to find it.
Perfect. Johnny, any last words?
Yeah, it was mentioned that there's a GitHub. It's under the Cardano Foundation's own GitHub at github.com/Cardano-Foundation. They have a number of open source projects there, and this includes this one, which is Cardano-Reward-Calculator. So you'll find it there. Also, I have a feature request already. If you could simulate where the blocks, how many blocks come, not just the percentage and sort of the outcome of the Monte Carlo distribution of blocks, that would be kind of cool for people to see. I remember there being something like that, I think also made by Dynamic Strategies back in the day, that sort of gave a projection for the potential for blocks. Not guarantee Monte Carlo re-roll multiple simulations, but sort of an idea of blocks throughout the year.
All right. There you have it.
People more work.
Cardano Stake Bull says, keep up the great work. So, and then we also saw earlier, B says she's very bullish on this. So it's, yeah, a lot of positive, let's say, the messages incoming. Guys, I think we can wrap it up. So I think we've seen a lot of information here today. We've heard from Marcus the whole, let's say, background, understanding of where it came from, the philosophy behind of it. We walked through with Dimitri really about the technical, the background, what's happening under the hood. We've even saw some examples of tweaking, what happens when you tweak certain parameters. And Johnny Kelly took us through really the different, let's say, governance aspect of it. And I think that is, in a nutshell, really what we've spoken about today. But there's far more to the calculator than we've actually seen, and we'd like to encourage you to play around with it. Later this afternoon, there will be an announcement via the X channel and other channels where we actually share the link that it's live, and we'll just encourage you to play around with it. And if you have any questions, yeah, you've just heard where you can reach the how you can submit them, or you can also reach out to Marcus, Johnny Kelly, or Dimitri, of course, if you have any questions. So thank you all for joining, and until next time.
We continue to exist. Bye-bye.
Thank you.